Hey, hello to all. Thank you for connecting with us today. We are in the show Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business, and we have a special guest today is Mari Girovich, and I am very glad and happy to have you here with us. I know that you are doing something amazing today, that you are launching your book. What is the name of your book, Mari?
Yeah, well, thank you, Alejandro. I'm so excited to be here and to have the opportunity to speak with the audience today. So, my book is God's Not Done with You: How to Advance in Your Career and Live in Abundance.
Wow, that's great. And I love that you have the believe word behind you. So that's something that is huge. And really, that's everything about this today in the show. What we are going to be doing, Mari, is we always start with who you were. Like, let's forget about this book right now, about like all the things that you have done. Start to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you were before you started to believe in yourself, and the second part is going to be like, okay, what happened, how you started to believe in yourself. So tell us a little bit about your life, who you were as a kid, as a teenager. I don't know the moment that you want to say.
Yeah, sure. So, I grew up in a small country town in Greene County, Pennsylvania. So, if you look at the corner of Pennsylvania, we're kind of like right there. And so, I graduated with 66 people, grew up middle of the class. Got a couple of siblings, an older sister, a couple of younger brothers, and so I was kind of in the middle. And the truth is growing up, I really didn't believe in myself. I had a lot of limiting beliefs and self doubts. I started struggling with spelling when I was 6 years old, and so I kind of adopted these beliefs that I wasn't good at writing, reading, or spelling. So all through school, I never read a whole chapter book, honestly, all through. And I just, even when I got to graduation, my mom, she had always talked about how you have to go to college, you have to go to college, you have to go to college. And I'm like, well, that's good for my other siblings, but that's not going to be right for me. I didn't really think I was intelligent enough to go to college, and so I was going to be a masseuse. Um, and then one day I went to Las Vegas with the family that I babysat for, and I was inspired by this trip. And in that moment, I was like, I'm going to run a hotel in Las Vegas. I don't know where this came from, but it did. And I came back home and I told my mom, I'm like, I'm going to run this hotel. And, she was just kind of telling me, she's like, okay, well, I'm going to call the Hilton. And she called the Hilton. And, I ended up at Penn State and graduated from there and started working in the restaurant industry. And that's what I was doing for several years. But the truth is I didn't really, just growing up, I didn't have a lot of self confidence or belief in myself. I didn't really know who I was. I kind of struggled. I was just trying to make other people happy and just, really, really struggled to understand my value and what I brought to the table, the gifts and the talents that I had.
And why do you think that you were not intelligent enough to go to a college or something? What was happening in your head?
Yeah, I thought I would fail at it. I'm just like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I wasn't really good in school. I think my parents are the one, they're like, okay, she graduated. We did it. Like, my brothers and sisters were really smart. They were smart without having to try sometimes. And I was like, trying, and not really getting anywhere. It would take extreme amounts of effort and it still wouldn't get very far. Um, I wouldn't know it till later, but I had a lot of stress going on from a childhood. When I was 6 years old, I was molested, and what I didn't know all of this time, I didn't realize this till a few years ago, actually, but I was under all of this stress and I was like putting up all of these walls and borders everywhere because I needed to keep everybody out because I needed to keep my secrets safe. So I didn't actually share this with anybody, not even my parents. My parents didn't even know this till a few years ago. And so I just had walls up, borders up. And so I wasn't also connecting with people and communicating with people because I was just like, they can't find out my secrets. And so I would keep everybody like kind of at an arm's distance, and like I had to know what was going on at all times. And because I think that's why I probably had such trouble learning, is because I was so focused on everything externally to make sure I was safe. And I wouldn't I discovered all this when I was 34 years old, but until then, I was just kind of like, I had to like strive through life. Everything was just really hard. So it was just like a push because I had to spend so much energy just trying to protect myself.
Wow. And that's huge because that's maybe one of the things that everybody, a lot of people is listening. Like, what happened if I am? Tell us a little bit of what happened when you have secrets and you don't want anybody to know about those secrets. How is the energy in yourself? And the second thing that I listen from what you are saying, it's about the you are comparing with others, with your siblings and others, and suddenly like, okay, I feel that I'm not intelligent because they are more intelligent than me, and you start to compare, and that's something that I always did. Like, okay, when you are comparing with others, you are like struggling a lot. If you want to compare with someone, start to compare with yourself. So you start to see like, okay, I have progress on this time, like. But when you compare with others, you are just suffering in the process.
That is so true. Yeah, that comparison, it just tears you down. But what you were first starting with is when you have this secret, or if you have any kind of trauma in your life. I know for me, I had feelings of shame and guilt. And one of the things I talk about in the book is our frequency level. Well, I didn't know this, but shame and guilt are the lowest frequencies. And when you are operating at a very low frequency, because our bodies are made up of energy, when you are operating at a very low frequency, it is incredibly challenging just to get through the day, just to stay happy. And so throughout my lifetime, I would find myself depressed. I would. It was hard. It was hard just to stay happy because I was always. It always took something else, right? I needed to have a success. I needed to have a win. I needed to have some kind of somebody else saying like, "Hey, I really believe in you," because I wasn't believing in myself. And so so anytime we have trauma of any kind, it can really affect us. And I think that's something important for us to discover and dig more into. But also, like you said, that comparison trap. When we compare ourselves to others, we will always be less than others. What I didn't realize, because I didn't have any self-awareness at this point,
Mm.
I just like you would what I think we have a tendency to do, Alejandro, is look at others and we find like the best thing about them, because that's the thing that shines. When you see somebody else, you see that thing that really shines about them. And then we're like, oh, I wish I had that. But then we look at the next person and we see the thing that shines about them and we're like, oh, I wish I had that. So then we're kind of like doing this role play. We're trying to be like 10 different people, right? And we're feeling bad because we can't measure up, because those aren't the gifts that we have. That's not our personality. That's not our makeup. And so when I was doing this comparison trap, I was like, one thing, my sister, she's so wonderful. My sister's so incredible. She's so smart. She was athletic. She was always better at basketball than I was. And, she went to college, and she ended up dropping off of the basketball team. And when she did that, I'm like, well, I can't go be on the basketball team. If my sister couldn't make it, there's no way I can. And so I let her decisions, which in her decision doesn't necessarily have to do with her ability. She's completely capable. She was completely capable, but I didn't realize that at the time. And it was actually interesting after we ended up going to the same college for a year, couple year or 1 year. Yeah, I took a couple puddle jumps before I got to Penn State. But we went to college, and so we would play intramural basketball together. And like I was outpacing her sometimes, and I'm like, yes. But I didn't have that belief going into college, so it limits ourselves whenever we try to play that comparison game. So it's really something we want to stay away from.
Yeah, no, and I agree. We really need to work on that area. Like, okay, we don't need to compare with anybody. If you want to do with somebody, do it with you, and that's key in everything. So let's go with that part. Okay, you started to like, okay, you were that person that didn't believe in yourself, like believe that you were nothing compared to other people. How you started to move to start to believe in yourself, like, okay, I am somebody in this world. I want to be in this restaurant. I want to be in this hotel, and I want to manage a hotel. So how even those ideas started to help you to start to vibrate better and start to do other things that you didn't thought that were possible.
Yeah, I think along our journey, like we can push hard. We can push hard and we can come to success. And that's what I did. I would push really hard. I was actually a workaholic when I first got into restaurants. I mean, I literally was the person that was studying the recipe book in my bathtub. Like that's what I would do. I was like, I felt like I needed to know it all. Like I didn't want anyone to find a flaw in me. I had this perfectionistic thing. And so I would find success early on by pushing hard, not always making good decisions. I was sometimes acting like a bull in a china cabinet whenever I would go into restaurants. And I realize how bad that was now, but I was doing the best I could then. And I think we all have to grow on our journeys. And so I had mentors that would come alongside me when I was working in the restaurants, and they would be sharing, hey, maybe you shouldn't do it like this. Hey, let's try it this way, and they would take me under their wing and help me to grow and develop, and that was so great just to have people there by my side, whether it be the general managers or the assistant general managers, but I had people that were always rooting for me. And I think a lot of us do in organizations. So really leaning in and believing what they say, but also in hindsight, I should listen a little bit more. But I kind of just pushed my way through not believing, but also knowing that I wanted to succeed. Like
Mm.
I wanted to advance, I wanted more. I remember early on when I switched from one company to another, I switched from TGI Fridays to work at Hofbrauhaus, which was a brand new restaurant, 1,200 people in Pittsburgh. They invited me to come and work on the opening team, which was amazing. And but when I was starting that position, they offered me one pay, and I was like, well, I'd really like to be here. And my manager's like, well, I'm not sure how we can get you there. But he did. He ended up making it work. But I didn't even realize it at that time. I was just like, I want to earn more. Like I just want to advance. Like I didn't understand. I just thought like you just advance, right? You just what you're supposed to do. And so, but it was a push instead of like a graceful upbringing, I guess is how I could say it. And I really, things really started to transfer when I actually switched industries. And Alejandro, I actually had some distorted wrong thinking and disbelief when I was switching industries. My husband, he's like, I broke out in hives one day. I was working at this consulting company. I broke out in hives. I came home, and my husband's like, why don't you get a job outside the restaurant industry? And in my mind, I'm like, no one's going to want to hire me. Like all of my experiences in this industry. And this was my belief. And so if that's my belief, that's what I'm acting in. And I was looking for jobs that day, and I found one to work at this wellness center. And I saw the ad. I listened to this message. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm supposed to be. I was like in hook, line, sinker. I'm like, whatever I got to do to get this job. I have my husband come up and listen to the message, and he's like, yeah, like not this kind of job. They're not going to pay you enough. It was a front office assistant position. And that's actually the position that I took. I took a position making less money than I was making out of college. But I was making the choice for my family. And I knew that God wanted me to be there. It was really weird. I'm supposed to be here. I don't know. It's just Fridays were off, but I was like, I'm supposed to be here. But what I didn't know is that, after starting, my bonus was going to increase 1 week in. So my bonus went up by $2,500 a month after being there for just 1 week. I didn't have to wait 90 days to be eligible. And then I learned that the owner of the company, he was actually starting another company to coach practitioners in business. So I went on to work for that company. But the truth is, Alejandra, I wasn't really believing in myself because here I am in a new industry, and I'm thinking like, okay, so at this point where before I was like, I have all my training in this, I'm really good at this. In this other industry where I'm definitely an outgoing person, I have ideas, I want to make an impact, but I kind of had this reservation of, hey, they'll tell me when I'm ready for that next level. And I did want to work for this company, and that was kind of a unique situation. So I got in, I started coaching practitioners. I ended up becoming what was called a director. And so I was over several. I had like 80 at one time, but over the years I coached hundreds of different functional medicine practitioners across the country and their team members. And so I'd start to move up. But then I got stuck again whenever I was in this service operations position
Let me
because,
let me
yeah, go
stop
ahead.
you here quickly because you
Yeah.
are sharing a lot of good things, and also we have a lot of people that is commenting here, so this is great. For example, I want to bring this idea of David. It's always great to have people in our corner and lending us their belief in us. And that's something that I would love to go a little bit deeper, because that's exactly what you are talking here. It's like I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I can do anything. I believe that I needed to have a job, but they moved me from this to another industry that I didn't want to enter. But what was happening, and at least what I am listening, is somebody was believing in me. Somebody was saying, Mary, you can do this, you can do this, you are going to become expert. And you are telling me that from that point that you didn't believe in that industry, suddenly you are coaching more than 100 people, and you are like helping them to improve their lives and the things that they are doing. So I want to go deep on this a little bit more, because sometimes it's okay if you don't believe in you, but if you have somebody that is believing in you, you have to take that belief, so from those people. And okay, I don't believe in myself right now, but the belief that Alejandro has in me, that Mari has in me, I will use it to become another person, and I need to do that. So how that works, and how you saw that in your life to work.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's see, I think that's one of those things where you can't see it when it's happening, but you can only see it when you kind of turn around and you start to connect the dots. Because my parents always believed in me growing up. Like, we didn't have a lot of money. Money was super tight and that was super stressful. I think that was probably, I started working at the age of 12, actually babysitting. So I worked since 12 because money, we needed money. I needed money. And that was the kind of a thing. And so that was always a driving force. But this belief, they believed in me early on,
Mm.
and they continued to believe in me. And so that was always a good support. And then the other people in the industries, and then my husband. And that's the thing. Even Alejandro now, like, I run my company, my promotion plan. But the truth was, I had this belief that, like, in order for people to want to work with me to help them advance their career, I should probably be an executive in another company. That's what's going to make me best. And other people have like said, oh, you should just do that full time. Like, you should do that full time. And so we need somebody to up level our thinking and believe in us when we don't. Because even when we're at the top of our game, like, I was already an executive at this point. I started working with the John Maxwell team, and Mark Cole became my mentor there. And what he said to me one time when we got on the call, because after I thought I was like up here, and then I met the John Maxwell team, and I'm like, wow, I've got some room to grow here. I've got a lot of room to grow. And Mark could tell I wasn't really believing in myself, and he's like, Mary, right now I can tell you're not believing in yourself, but one day you will, and until then, you can borrow my belief in you. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like, now I got to do this thing, right? Not only, Mark Cole, the CEO of the John Maxwell team, believes in me. I've got to do this work. I've got to do this stuff. And I think that's one thing that we don't understand all the time, is that belief plays so much into it, and believing in others. And God tells us that in the Bible. He tells us to encourage one another, to lift each other up. That's why he wants us to keep coming together, so we can encourage and lift each other up. And the world sometimes tells us, though, like, hey, point out everybody's flaws, be really critical. But it's like, no, the more we can lift each other up and speak life into people, the higher they're going to develop and grow. And so, yeah, having others to believe in you is so important. And I think that's why coaching is so effective, because you need somebody to come alongside of you that has taken the journey that you want to go on. Because you might be having doubts, you might not be believing in yourself right now, but when somebody else can see that, and they can be that encouraging coach to not point out your flaws, but to point out the great things in you and help you see some of your blind spots and some of the areas where you have true value, it can make all the difference.
And really, for example, what you are saying, once again, is important, because you are saying, okay, somebody believed in me, Mark Cole believed in me, and suddenly I decided to accept that belief. Even when I don't do it, I decided to start to move. I have to make it done. I have to do something about it. So that's because sometimes you're like, okay, they believe in me, but I don't believe in me. So I am not doing anything. And I am here because I don't believe in me, even when everybody's believing in me. And for example, like Lisa is saying here, it's like other will see more in us than what we see.
Yeah.
That's true. There is a lot of people that is looking, okay, I see all the dots that of the thing that you can start to do. But really, if you don't want even to take those things and say like, okay, I don't believe in me, but I am going to do it because they believe in me. So the magic starts to happen when you start to do that.
Yeah, it changes your thoughts too. When other people believe in you, it plants seeds. It plants seeds of hope in your mind. And then those seeds of hope can start to take root and they can start to grow. And I mean, when that's the thing, whenever we have this hope, then we can start to grow that with our words, with our actions, with our thoughts. And when we take that action, then that's how we create a new belief, because that belief just becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And once we take those actions, then we're like, oh, okay, I can do this thing. It's just kind of getting over that hump. And part of what happens, Alejandro, is because we're adults, we just think like we should be able to do everything. But we have, and especially when it comes to career advancement, which is what I teach, we just think, well, we should know how to do this. Well, why should we know how to do this? We've never been taught how to, right? Most people don't have a class in school that's like, here's how you advance in your career. No, it doesn't happen like that. And even the information that is out there isn't great. So what happens is we try something, we don't get the result that we want, we get knocked down, and now we're like, oh, well, that's not going to work. But what we have to realize is that a no isn't always a bad thing. A lot of times, especially when we're connected to God, a no isn't a bad thing because it could be taking us to something that's so much better. And that's really where I've found peace in my life, is through my relationship with Jesus Christ, because I know, like, I just need to be obedient and listen. And so that's why we wrote the book today. That's why I do things, but the result is not always going to be what I want it to be, but it can be greater than what we ever expected.
So let's start to enter a little bit of what you are doing now. Why you think it's needed this in the world right now? Why you feel? I know that you are in a like in a mission really to help women to
Yeah.
start to improve their lives and start to see their value, their worth, and how they can become better in their life, in their business, in the thing that they are doing. So why God is not done with you?
Yeah. So years ago, I actually got stuck when I was advancing in my career. Um, when I was working with freedom practice coaching, I got stuck, and the truth is I got a raise that I wasn't proud of it. I just wasn't proud of it, and I didn't say anything because I didn't know, like, I didn't even know what my value was, so I didn't know that it didn't equate to my value. But what that did internally was it gave me a lot of more self-doubt. Like, I already was holding on to the shame and guilt from childhood. I still was carrying that. I still was carrying the, hey, maybe you're not that intelligent, right? So I was like, I don't want anyone to see this. Like, I don't want anyone to know this. And so I'm hiding all of these things, and I'm trying to push forward because I think I need to be perfect in order to move forward. And, then I get this raise I'm not proud of. And then I'm like, it's like spiraling down. But my husband was believing in me, and he was telling me, he's like, Mary, you can be an executive. You should be an executive. And what I was thinking wasn't actually that logical. Here I am having the biggest and most successful coaching load. And I was named team member of the year in 2014. I had advanced, and still I was thinking like, no, I'm not capable of that. He had this belief in me. This goes on for, I don't even know how long, daily, for forever, it seems like. But one day I was at a leadership meeting, and I stood up and I'm like, I'm going to be the next COO of this company. And I told that to the then COO, and she's like, yes, you should do that. And so I thought I'd have like 10 years, Alejandro, at least. And the next thing I know, 3 months later, the position opens up, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to go and ask for this position. And I knew I needed to ask for it because in the past, I would help hire other managers, and then I would train them. I'd help to train them when they came in. And so, right, once again, this distorted thinking we have. So I went into my boss's office, I asked him for the position, and he said, we're not sure that you're right. Um, you know, but if you can do the job, then we'll give you the pay and the title. And so I did all of the traditional things. I'm working harder and harder. I'm like trying to lead people around me, but it wasn't working. One woman said, I don't want to be led by other women. Others would just disregard me. People don't tend to like change and have to listen to somebody that, isn't really leading them. And I didn't really understand how to lead at this point. I was just managing. So this was a hard challenge for me, but I had a vision for the company. I knew and I could see what we could do to make improvements. I couldn't find a way to communicate that. And so one day I was sitting at work on my day off, and my husband calls me and he says, Mary, my company's going in a different direction. I think I'm going to be out of my job. So here I was, my husband, the breadwinner, is losing his job. I can't earn a promotion. We just had our fourth child. And that's when God told me, he's like, Mary, make a plan. And so over the next few weeks, I went to work making a plan, what I now call a my promotion plan. And I turned it into my boss. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, right? It's kind of like when Joshua had the Israelites walking around Jericho, right? They're just walking around. They don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen when I turn this plan in, but I turn it in. My boss comes to my office. He's like, this is so impressive. When are we talking about it? And I'm like, tomorrow. And that's when I was made vice president of operations. Another year and another plan, I became COO. Another year, I turned another one in just because they worked so well to implement. And that's when I was made that partner, told I was on track to be CEO, and encouraged to start my business that I have today. And through this process, I started interviewing other people as executives and as an executive. And what I was realizing is women were coming in for interviews, and the salaries that they were asking for were really low. And they had all this experience. And I'm like, what is going on? See, here, I thought I was the only one struggling to advance in my career and value myself and having all these skills. And then I'm learning, like, no, there's an epidemic of women. And I start to look into the statistics, and I start to figure out, okay, how do we get over this? And what I realized is, women are paid 18% less than men. They only fill 1/5 of the executive suite. And there's many reasons that this is happening. But once I started to get this information, and I started teaching other people the promotion planning system, and they too were able to get the incredible results that I had, I knew that I needed to share it with more people. And so that's when I put the course together. And at the end of 2019, God told me, he's like, Mary, you're supposed to help 1 million women earn promotions and raises by 2030. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, then we have to be able to get it out there at a wider scale, right? Like more than just my coaching program, which is amazing, but that's why I put the book together, so people would have access to it at all income levels, and across the world, right? Everybody would have access to this now. And so I started writing the book in 2020, and that's kind of how the book came together. And then after I got the manuscript written for the book, then God's like, hey, I'm supposed to be in your book. Because originally this was just to help women advance in their careers. And I'm like, oh no, right? No. Like this is some kind of perfectionism, some kind of procrastination technique. No, like just no. Like this is already big enough. I have enough fears, like no way. And I asked my editor, Emily, and I said, Emily, God's saying that he's supposed to be in my book. And she's like, oh yeah, you should do that. He should definitely be in your book. And I'm like, okay. So that's when I became a co-author to the Holy Spirit. And the truth was, he's been in my heart the whole time. And so now the book is just transferred into something way greater than it ever could have been. And God and I have journeyed together, because where I was struggling before, Alejandro, with striving and stressing and like pushing forward, once I understood how to renew my mind and harmonize my heart with the Lord, which is the second part of the book, I was able to understand that I don't have to strive and stress in life. That's not what God wants for me. He doesn't want that for me. He doesn't want me overworking. He doesn't want me stressed out. Like, yes, he wants me to work. Yes, he wants me to do hard things. Yes, he's going to challenge me to do things, but he's also going to be here. And when we understand and when we have this relationship with the Lord, then everything just becomes easier. It's not that the challenges become less. Sometimes you can get a few less challenges just because you learn how to respond a little bit better. So you're not creating challenges in your life, but When you learn how to harmonize your heart and renew your mind, then you just live in alignment with God, and the promises of God are yours. And that's how you can partner with God for your promotion, because God wants to promote us in life, not just in our careers, but he wants us to do it his way. So we can't be manipulating. We can't be scheming. He doesn't want us stealing. He doesn't want us lying. Like if we're getting ahead those ways, it's not what he wants. He doesn't want us, disadvantaging others, talking badly about others. There's a way he wants to promote us. And so we covered that in the book, but I just really wanted to be able to share this with everybody, because once I knew that this promotion plan worked and I could see we had an 83% success rate. And here's what's remarkable about that. You're like, okay, well, this is for people that haven't been able to get promoted in the past, for people that there's no current opening. So their boss, there's not an opening, and their boss isn't approaching them for advancement. So they're able to go in by themselves and ask for this. And oftentimes they're creating positions that don't even exist yet within the company, which is how people can land their dream jobs. Because you see a need, but you have to learn how to communicate that value. And that's what the promotion planning did. It actually helps to bust through all the biases that we have, as well as it is like the perfect negotiation tool to help set you up. So when you walk into your boss's office, you don't look entitled because you're not going in empty-handed. It's like you're handing them a gift when you go in, and they're like, oh, this is different, right? Because most people just go in and ask for that promotion, and sometimes they ask in the wrong ways. And so it's just really valuable for the companies as well. And that's why in our company, promotion planning became the standard. That's what you did to earn a raise or promotion. You put one of these plans together because it adds value back to the company. And so I want to help corporations do this too, because what we know is for women, when there's a system, they'll follow the system and they'll have better results in it.
Awesome. And can you explain a little bit, because I know that we're almost at the end of the program, but can you explain a little bit of what is like the details or some of the details that you share with that promotion plan?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So there's 7 steps to the My Promotion Plan process. You can get all the details in the book. We don't hold anything back. We give you everything. So get the book, but 7 steps. So the first one is your career advancement journey. And this is where you outline the next 5 positions that you want to have, right? Maybe there's not 5, but you outline the next 5 positions in the next 5 years. You want to put on there, like, what training do you need to do to get into those positions? And what responsibilities will you have in those positions? That just starts to help to open you up to understand what it really takes for that next position. A lot of times we think we're not capable of something, but we don't really even know what it entails. And so people find that it's really easy to move through once they have this kind of map put together. It's like when you get in your car, right? You're not just getting in your car and driving around, you know where you're going. And the same thing is true with your career. You want to have a plan in where you're going. You can always change it, but you still want to have some kind of direction you're going in, so you'll know if you've arrived. The second part is an appreciation letter. And so you just want to show appreciation to those that have helped you. So your managers, your bosses, those people that are going to help you, continue to help you, you want to appreciate them. I didn't realize this at the time when I added this to the plan. I just wanted to say thank you to my leaders. I think it's really important. They don't hear thank you enough usually, definitely not in written format. So I make it a habit to do that. But what I realize is it's actually a negotiation tactic. So Chris Voss teaches us about labeling. And so you actually are labeling this person as somebody that has helped you to advance, that has helped you to do great work. And so you're labeling them, and that just helps with negotiation and then wanting to see you in this role because you've said, like, hey, you're part of this. The next thing we do is we talk about our accomplishments. And it's important for us to have an accomplishment portfolio to talk about, because a lot of times we think, well, our manager knows everything we're doing. Well, I think I was a pretty involved manager. I really love my team. I couldn't possibly know what all of them were doing all the time. They were doing so many great things. Plus, the other thing that happens is we only have a tendency to remember what was done the last 30 days. And so we think like, oh, our boss is going to remember all this stuff. They're not. They're not. So you need to put it down and then make it quantitative if you can. If you can't, that's okay, but make it quantitative. The other thing that's really helpful about this accomplishment section is it helps you to also see what you've done, right? Like what have you really added value to in the company, so you can see your value as well. And we didn't go over all the biases that we face today, but this specifically addresses performance bias. So performance bias tells us that women are not seen as capable of doing a position in the workplace until they've actually done it, which is a real problem because you usually don't get the chance to do it before you do it. And so this helps because now your manager can see your strategy, and now they can visualize you. They can visualize you in that role. And so the next step, and I'm sorry, I actually messed that up. I'm sorry, there's so many biases. Attribution bias is the one for this. Performance bias is the one for the next one. So attribution bias, what this says is that women's mistakes are actually seen, like they're actually remembered more than the good stuff. So you want to bring the good stuff to life, especially if you're a woman. But performance bias helps with the next section and overcome the next section, which is the ideas and problems to solve for the future. And so this is where you actually lay out your strategy. So you want to look around and figure out like, hey, what's going wrong here? Like what needs fixed? And so I had this vision, right? So you lay it out and you put, what is it that needs to be solved? Why are we going to solve it? And how are we going to solve it? And when we lay it out in this formula, then it can help your manager see you and overcome that performance bias so they can see you in that future role. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to learn how to figure out what your salary should be. A lot of times we figure out our salaries wrong. Remember before I said, hey, I was having self-doubt because I got this raise I wasn't proud of. Well, I didn't even know what my value should be. I just was wanting it to be more than that. And so what we teach you is how to actually go and do research to find your market value. So you need to know how to do that. And so there's sites that you can go to like glassdoor.com, payscale.com, indeed.com, and they have some salary stuff there. But if you can't find enough information there, then you can start to talk to other people in the industry. I was recently coaching one person, and when we first started talking, they're like, okay, I think I'll ask for like $5,000 more. That'll be good. And I'm like, well, while that's good, we could look at what your industry and what this position should pay. And through this process, they were able to earn $20,000 more than $15 more than what they originally wanted, plus get a bonus on top of that. And so it pays to know your value. And the last thing you want to do is two more things. You want to have a personal development and growth plan. So in this section, what you want to do is think about the 2 to 4 things you really want to develop in over the next year. When you let your manager know these things, they're going to see that you're committed to growing. And then they're going to want to help you in those endeavors. That's actually how I got to be part of the John Maxwell team. I put on there that I wanted to go to this John Maxwell team thing. And they're like, okay, well, let's look into that. And so I got to get this leadership training, which was incredible. And you can get training like that too, but your manager needs to know like, hey, why should we back you? And what is it that you want? And you want to stay focused on your training. Otherwise, we don't really soak it in. Learning, you learn over time. This is not an instant event. And so the last thing that we do is we put what we call our closing together. And in this section, what we want to do is make it really clear on what we're asking for. As we said earlier, women would rather be approached for advancement than have to approach their manager. But the truth is your manager isn't going to approach you. There's a lot of reasons, right? It's not that you'll never be approached, but if you feel stuck, you need to let your manager know that you want more from your career. There's something called maternal bias, which affects a lot of women because it starts to affect women not only when they have kids, but actually even when they get engaged. Because what it does is we just subconsciously, implicit bias, it's true for men and women, but we subconsciously think, well, oh, they're starting a family. They're probably not going to want an advancement. And so it's really important for us to just make it known what we want. So in the closing, we put exactly what we want. We want this position. We want to talk about our compensation, or, hey, this is the specific compensation that we're looking for. And we put all that together and we turn it in, and then the next day we have our meeting. And people are like, well, does this really work? Yes. Well, we see the results, and we see that people are able to earn between 10 and 40% raises, where typical raise is like 3%. So it's huge. But the other thing I'd say is everybody has seen the hit TV show Undercover Boss. And when you're on there, you always see two things. You always see the person that's been in the position for years, typically a woman, sometimes even 8 years. And it boggles my mind. She's doing incredible. And they're like, well, what's your plan? Well, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to wait to get noticed. Well, as soon as that boss comes in and they notice them, well, what happens? They go into the training program, they get promoted. The other thing that we see in Undercover Boss, which is why we know these plans will work for all industries, is because every time that great ideas are uncovered Undercover Boss, what do they have them do? Well, they take them back to headquarters and they pay them to teach everybody else how to implement them. But your boss isn't hearing your great ideas because they don't know that you have them. And there's many reasons why we don't share ideas or why they don't get heard. But when you take the time to thoughtfully document and write your ideas down and schedule a meeting, your ideas will be heard. And most oftentimes, they're going to move forward with implementation.
Wow. No, this is huge, Marianne. And I'm putting even the link here to connect and to buy this book. Today is the launch book, so I really recommend you to go and buy the book for you, for your friends, like Lisa is saying. Okay, you start to see like, okay, I see that this person is going to need this. I see this person is going to need this. And really, in my side, I was talking with Mari last week, and I was telling, okay, I think that even my wife is going to be like learning a lot of the things with the thing that you are telling. So you can start to do that with the book that you have here. Now you know even the author that is writing this book, that is Mary, is it's amazing. She is amazing, and really thank you for all your words of wisdom and really co-authoring this book with the Holy Spirit. That is great. That is awesome. Half of the people here was writing like, okay, co-author by the Holy Spirit. That is amazing. And I agree. That's why this book is so powerful and can change you and help you to really start to know what is your value. Okay, if you don't believe in yourself, even start to borrow what the Holy Spirit or God is telling about you and what is your worth according to Him, not according to you, but according to Him. So that's huge. Thank you, Mary. Do you have any last word to say? And after, I know that you are going to say, buy the book. You are going to find everything. That's why I'm saying that. You don't have to say that.
Yes.
But what is like the last thing, or maybe last thought, if they were here and listened to everything, but they didn't get everything? What is the phrase or last thing that you want to say to them? Like, if you didn't get anything, this is exactly what you want them to know.
Yeah, if you didn't hear anything else, I just really want you to know that God has a purpose and a plan for your life. You were put here for a reason, and He can help you do incredible things far beyond what you feel is possible. So, if something's being put in front of you, take that opportunity. If you can't believe in yourself, believe that God's there to help you because He is. He's there helping you every step of the way. And I believe in you.
And me too. So we are really happy. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everybody that was here today. And really buy the book. Look for people. Send them this link and tell them, okay, buy this book for you. You are going to enjoy it a lot, even for yourself or for the people that you want to. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, everyone.